It's a new week. Good morning and welcome to the beginning of a 5-day package of current and relevant business conversations here on Business Morning. And it's coming to you live on Channels Television. I'm Amy John Mekwa. Well, following that signing into law of the National Health Insurance Bill here in Nigeria, the National Insurance Commission's portal has been launched. With this, the Minister of Finance, Budget and Planning, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, is asking insurance operators to address the low contribution of the sector to the country's gross domestic product. Mrs. Ahmed notes that the sector, which had huge potential, contributed just less than 0.88% to be precise, to the country's GDP in 2021. This indicates a low insurance sector development contribution to the national economy, emphasizing the need to develop new innovative products based on data and consumer preferences, as well as introduction of new channels of distribution beyond the traditional channels to reach new segments of the market. From Nigeria, we go to the global space. Now, activities on the global space, global oil space begins with gains this week as U.S. fuel demand, tight supply, and slightly weaker U.S. dollar supporting the market as Shanghai prepares to reopen after a 2-month lockdown fueled by worries about a sharp slowdown in growth. Brent crude futures rose 97 cents to $113.52 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures climbed 80 cents to $111.08 a barrel, and that's adding to last week's small gains for both contracts. The U.S. peak driving seasons traditionally begins on Memorial Day on May and ends on Labor Day, that's in September. Analysts say despite fears about soaring fuel prices potentially denting demand, mobility data from TomTom and Google had climbed in recent weeks, and this indicates that people were on the roads in places like the United States. Market gains have been capped, however, by concerns about China's efforts to crush COVID-19 with lockdowns, even with Shanghai due to reopen on the 1st of June. And still within that space, we've been talking a whole lot about gas, and as European countries seek to discontinue the usage of Russian gas and oil, they look to Africa. Nigeria has the largest reserve of gas in Africa. How do we develop it? How do we come into the picture at this time? We'll be having that conversation just after the break with Mr. Joseph Ezigbo. He's joining us right here in the studio. It's Business Morning here on Channels Television. You're still watching Business Morning here on Channels Television. Now, Nigeria's Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Mr. Timi Silva, said that the federal government is taking steps to develop and harness the country's 208.62 trillion cubic feet of gas. According to him, the government was trying to achieve this aim through enhanced gas exploration and development, as well as utilization of schemes which would lead to gas reserves growth. Well, this brings to mind the Gas Master Plan, which is not new in Nigeria. It was conceived in 2006 by now NNPC Limited to move gas within Nigeria, achieve a domestic gas utilization plan, and also, of course, to expand it and improve our foreign reserve. Well, to speak to this, we have Mr. Joseph Ezigbo. He is the Managing Director of Falcon Petroleum, joining us this morning in the studio. Good to have you, Professor Ezigbo. Sorry,
what a professor of Mr.
It's all you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. So we talk a lot about reserve and potentials in Nigeria. Another area of potential is gas. And it's not new. It's not a new conversation. I know I've read a lot and heard a lot. A couple of months ago in the House of Representatives, they brought up the issue of pipeline project that's supposed to develop and, move gas through Morocco to Europe and all that. But what's the real state? You are in there. Please give us, what's the real state of gas development in Nigeria?
You know, each time the topic comes up, I take a deep breath. I've heard the word potential in the oil and gas industry, so much so that it is now meaningless. Because if everything you can think of Nigeria as potential, then is unfortunate. And at times, permit me to use this word, at times I think it's criminal for us to get to that point where everything is in the potential form, in the sense that Nigeria, we're not bereft. Nigeria is not bereft of ideas. We have had so many. We have had so many policies, so many ideas put out there in the open to try and help us grow the oil and gas in this country. But not, you see, what it takes is the political and the economic will, and that's it. But selfishness in several quarters tend to minimize the efforts of good people. Nigeria is not bereft of ideas of what to do. We are bereft of the willingness, both political and economic, to try and pursue them. You talk about Nigeria being, we have so much gas. As we speak now, it's about 200 to 210 trillion cubic feet.
Yes, I think 208.
But it's about 208, 210. You see, because it's growing every day. Okay, and we've set things in motion to ensure that we even increase it. Look at the bidding that was done for marginal fields. That was the aim was to increase gas reserves by another 10 trillion cubic feet. If that had gone through, maybe we would now be talking about 220. It was supposed to increase crude oil supply by another 600,000 barrels per day. 57 marginal fields were bidded for. 161 companies were awarded. But what is happening today? Nothing. It's gone back to the drawing board. Nothing has happened.
So now that the Minister of State for Petroleum is talking about it,
yes.
I know we had the gas master plan since 2006.
Yeah.
And we really talked about it then, you know, and afterwards. But now that he's bringing it back with what's going on in Europe and all of that, do you think perhaps this will be a motivation for that political and economic will you're talking about?
Maybe, maybe not, and I'll tell you why. In 2000, Mr. President, with the best will in the world, and in an attempt to move Nigeria forward, what did he do? He declared 2000 as the year of gas. He didn't even stop there. But let me ask a little question. That year of gas, what did he do for us? Did we stand at attention and make it work? Because then the president and the government were telling us that this is the year for gas, the year 2000. Next year, 2021. Maybe in an attempt to try and restate what he said in 2000, of 2000 being the year of gas for Nigeria, he now went ahead to expand it to the decade of gas from 221 to 231. That's where we are at the moment. What has that done for us? What are we doing to ensure that we latch onto that? Latch onto our president who is speeding up with gas development. Latch onto him and move with it.
Could the challenge maybe be investment? Because this is this requires
the problem here. The problem, you see, when you say it's part of it. I know several companies that are looking at expansion, particularly infrastructural expansion for gas. But most Western investors, please, I will say this with caution, but I think it's a conspiracy. Because I remember that so many of the companies were looking for investment in the past 3 years. What they got back from foreign investors was that we're going into renewables.
Yes.
No more gas and no more crude oil.
Fossil fuel.
However, in some of the countries, they are still using coal. Some of these countries
they are still using coal
that refuse to give Nigerian companies support. What has happened? As if God heard our prayers, although unfortunately nobody will wish what is happening in Ukraine on anybody, but it has happened. The war between Russia and Ukraine has brought to the fore a conspiracy of the West against the developing countries. Because if we have built a trans-Saharan gas pipeline when it was envisaged, there'll be gas in Europe now from Nigeria. We have the Alps that taking gas to Ghana. How many times have Ghana complained about us not being able to give them gas? But building another Alps too. But the question is, if we understand what the Western world is trying to do to us, how are we helping ourselves to be able to surmount it and come out? But unfortunately, this is something for another day. What is happening today is not policies. It's not regulations. We have the best ideas. But we have a problem. We have a systems collapse. We have a total systems collapse. And until you address it and get you and I to become Nigerians and be willing to say, what can we do for Nigeria? We can make all the laws, beautiful laws, we can pass all the beautiful policies. But the policies don't have legs, they cannot walk.
Prof, maybe you should explain what you mean by system collapse and how.
Fine. You see, they say very simple thing, and a hungry man is an angry man. And a man who is hungry today will be so afraid of being hungry tomorrow. He'll have children. He will not want his children to be hungry. And he sees a cake he can take. He goes there and he's not looking back. He's collecting for himself and for his children's children, forgetting that there are millions of others that are required unless there is a judicious management of that cake. Most of it will go to waste. People take money, put in countries. What's happening to them? They die. Some we don't have access to it anymore. So we need to tell ourselves the truth. We need somebody who can come in, take this country from where it is, love the country to start with, be ready to sacrifice for the country and give it everything. You see, Nigerians were very good people. Nigerians are very good people. I remember during the first coming of our president, Buhari Diagbo. Then I was a young lecturer in the university. Most cases, people throw out banana peels from their cars. You carry your students in the car, and you peel their banana, extend their hand to throw it out, and bring it back into the car. The president was not here, there, Diagbo wasn't there, but there, the body language told everybody what you could or could not do. Today, what has happened? We've lost all that.
So, Prof, I mean, this, of course, you have said, links back to the season we are in Nigeria.
Exactly.
It's a pre-election season. We see that the delegates are the ones with the power now. And I know when I heard a little bit of conversation in our Sunrise program, yes, asking the delegates to please think of the children and think of Nigeria and, of course, not, you know, their initial benefits or their current benefit. So I guess this is also what you're saying at this time. But, you know, it will also be interesting to note that to ask the question, where do we get that kind of a person? Because they say a society get the leader they deserve. And if most Nigerians, as you have described at this time, you know, people don't care if they throw the banana peel out there. So where do we get this saint, you know, that will get Nigeria out of...
We don't need a saint. We really need a madman. Really, no, the most
you concur with the former president of Obasanjo.
We need a madman. Because see, I look at Nigeria the way it is. If you give me ₦1 trillion and make me the president of this country, I will tell you, no, thank you. And the reason why I've did it is not because I don't love Nigeria, but because the landmines that have been laid already, even before the new, he hasn't even come into the scene. The landmines that have been laid are so much. To navigate it, he will need God to help him. However, somebody asked me, I was at the economic summit in Abuja a couple of days ago. And I was at the summit and we were talking about the new election, talking about where do we go from here. Because Nigerians, for me, really, we like always talking about, oh, problems. We never sit down to look at the solution. The day we start thinking of solutions, maybe things will start getting better. However, he now said, whoa, Joe, each time you come, you sit in the conferences, you say the same thing, but nobody's listening to you. Why do you bother coming? And I said to them, listen, I'm not wasting my time. I talk about gas for the simple reason that I'm not an engineer. I'm a medical parasitologist, but I left medical parasitology to engineering to pipe natural gas. Today, my company will deliver natural gas to Ikorodu. We're going to deliver natural gas to the free zones. We're also building a tank farm in Port Harcourt to do LPG. Why? A medical man in engineering doing all this. He said, why haven't all the engineers been doing that? And I said, it's a calling. And the reason why I'm saying I keep talking is because I know, not in my time, not in my children's time, I know that for sure, maybe not in my children's time.
Wow, that's
But in the next 20, 25 years, people will start listening. You see, when you take so much, there comes a point in time when, you know, like the parable I say, you hold a child's toy up and you say, don't play with it. Somewhere along the line, your hands get heavy. You bring the toy down, the child takes his toy. It's going to happen to Nigeria, whether we like it or not. So I encourage you, just let's keep talking.
All right, Prof. All right, Professor Joseph Ezigbo, Managing Director of Falcon Petroleum. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we couldn't delve into the issue of transition, energy transition, and all of that. I think we got carried away with the realities of our time in Nigeria at this time. But it's all for Nigeria, and as you said, we will keep talking.
We'll keep talking, yes.
We will not
We don't have any choice.
We will not give up.
I love this country, and therefore I must keep talking, yes.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for sharing your time with us this morning. Well, we'll take a break now. After that break, Nigeria and other African countries have been getting a lot of pronouncements on assistance on food security. How far, how well, how should it be used? Find out after the break. This is Business Morning on Channels Television. You're welcome back. The African Development Bank Group's Board of Directors has approved $1.5 billion facility. And that's to help African countries avert a looming food crisis with the disruption of food supplies arising from Russia-Ukraine war. Records from AFDB indicates that Africa now faces a shortage of at least 30 million metric tons of food, especially wheat, maize, and soybeans, both imported from both countries. Consequently, the initiative, that's the one by AFDB, is to benefit 20 million African farmers who will receive certified seed and technology to rapidly produce 38 million tons of food. Well, this is just one of the many assistance. We have the one from the United States, we have the one from the World Bank, we have the one from IMF. But what should Nigeria be doing with these packages? We have the President of Agriculture and Industrial Entrepreneurs of Nigeria, Mr. Chukwu Nwachukwu, joining us now to share his perspective. Mr. Nwachukwu joins us virtually from Aba. Good morning, Mr. Nwachukwu. Good to have you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. See you again.
Yeah, so a lot of assistance and attention now coming to not just Nigeria, but the African countries. Are we even able to keep a record of it? Then we'll now talk about coordinating it so it doesn't just end, you know, with what we see in the news with figures, and then we don't even feel the impact.
Well, as I said to you the last time, it's never been the absence of policy initiatives. It has always been the absence of policy implementation. As a matter of fact, I believe that the World Bank and the other donors must be tired of donating to Nigeria because there's no reciprocal growth in the system. We still have pervading poverty, unacceptable unemployment levels. And so if we do not target these funds to where they're supposed to go, they cannot create production or productivity. It's a wrong handling of program initiatives, particularly giving it to people who are unable to execute them. I believe, and I've said it before, these interventions should be private sector driven. Government has failed and failed woefully to implement any of the policy initiatives that would create food security in Nigeria. So I think it's just not a matter of figures, it's a matter of who is implementing it. There continue to be figures bounced up and down, billions and billions of naira, and they have been sunk into this country with little or no impact on poverty or food security.
All right, so I know you said more like figures, but really in an ideal situation, who should be in charge? How should it flow from these international bodies or a country like the United States? How should it flow, and how do you think it should be channeled so that it will get to the last man down there in the ladder?
It should be channeled. It should be channeled through the development banking system with stringent conditions to ensure that these funds are actually loaned out to entrepreneurs. Last time I was with you, we talked about agripreneurs, and we're still almost at the concluding aspects of signing MOUs with development finance institutions and also development banking, the commercial banks in Nigeria, so that these funds can then be actually channeled to the entrepreneurs, whom I call agripreneurs. These are the people who would, operating on the profit motive, produce food. When you put it in the hands of government, there's so much bureaucracy. The bureaucracy will not allow them to actually release those funds. As good as it sounds, a lot of these funds are not placed in commercial banks to attract interest rates. And that's where you see perverted corruption going on in this country. I think that, and I will advise the World Bank and the donor agencies not to target this thing, sort of put this money in the hands of any government agencies at all. They do not have the capacity to implement the policies that would encourage growth, production, and productivity in agriculture. Now, with Raw Materials Research and Development Council of Federal Ministry of Science, as I told you, have an MOU with them. We're negotiating with deposit money banks and commercial and development finance institutions like Bank of Industry. What Bank of Industry should do is simply to warehouse these funds. They're not living up to what they're supposed to do. There's just so much inactivity and inefficiency built up in the system. They should warehouse these funds and then loan them out to people who are the actual practitioners of agricultural production. Now, when we are through with our program, which should be in the next couple of months, each entrepreneur will be involved in a clustering system. The reason for clustering is so that they cross-collateralize themselves in the first instance. And secondly, we'll be able to monitor and target those funds to go to the actual entrepreneurs and the actual production. That's the only way you can actually trace and track the funds. We don't track the funds. They go into wrong hands, and that's just business as usual. And this business as usual will keep us back by the next year and the following year. We will still be talking about the number of funds, amount of funds coming into Nigeria. And of course, we as a country are fond of budgeting. And this budgeting has ritualized programs. Every August, they call for call-up circulars and budget, and I put this thing there. Again, the capital projection for even agriculture is not even implemented. I think the capital projections in agriculture are probably implemented 10%. What happened to the rest of it? It's about time we started to tell ourselves the truth. We have wrong implementers of programs. Government cannot implement purely business-driven enterprises. So these funds should be given to development finance institutions simply for warehousing of those funds. And those funds will now be channeled to the agripreneurs whom we're packaging. If we're packaged like 500 people per local government in Nigeria, I told you before, not only would you have millions and millions of tons of food production, we produce for raw materials consumption, we produce for domestic consumption, we produce for export, and then we'll create massive employment, not less than 20 million Nigerians employed.
All right, Mr. Nwachukwu, unfortunately at this time, we have more constraints with the war going on in Ukraine. And it looks like the war might be going on for longer than was expected. So we have the challenge, the direct challenge of wheat and corn and other grains, fertilizer and all that. What should we be doing at this time to at least hedge or protect the country? Because inflation is just surging, and we do not know where it's heading to or where it's going to end. What should we be doing at this time as a country to hedge against this surging inflation and with the continuous war and the multiply effects everywhere?
Well, you see, this is actually a very opportune time for Nigeria to engage in agricultural production because there's a great demand, occasioned by the war in Ukraine. So when things like that happen, first of all, the price of oil has jumped, twice the value. And there's a dearth of foods. There's not food nor raw materials nationwide and worldwide. So Nigeria, with abundant labor, abundant arable area in Nigeria, should jump into agriculture and begin to create food and raw materials that can replace the stoppage of food from Ukraine, from Russia, and all the allied nations. This should be a boom time. And when we produce these things and export them, guess what happens? It impacts directly on the macroeconomics. There's less demand on the naira, and it will adjust. The exchange rate will be adjusted to normal levels, and indeed, Nigeria can then even earn more in foreign exchange and diversify its economy. So I don't know what the Ministry of Planning is doing. They're not looking at global economy, to look at where we can fit in, on the macro mix. Where are we fitting in? Where do we require? There's a big demand for maize in Europe. There's a big demand for cassava in China. There's a big demand for wheat. And these are things we can produce. We don't have the ability at this point to go into massive commercial agriculture. But because we can cluster these people, imagine clustering 500 people in every local government, times 774 local governments. It's going to give you 387,000 agro entrepreneurs, all producing targeted crops that we can export and also consume domestically. So this, as much as a boom time for oil, it should be a bigger boom time. More so, when you have people now importing food and raw materials from Nigeria, you hook them there, and the chances that they will not go back to look for new clients to purchase from. So okay, this is an opportune time for Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Nwachukwu, but the reality is that, I mean, the boom time and all that, at this moment, the country is struggling with paying subsidy, which is increasing because of that boom you're talking about. And if we were to diversify and give more attention to agriculture, mechanized farming, industrial park, and all of that, that also requires funding. So the question now is, where do we get that funding from, you know, to jumpstart these projects that we really need to engage in with at this time?
That's the interesting part of it. The funds are already here in Nigeria. The funds are available. CBN has budgeted over 220 billion naira for agriculture. I mean, for SME, for small and medium enterprises. They've also budgeted 250-something billion for commercial agriculture as well as anchor borrowers program. It is a question of targeting these funds to the right areas, targeting the funds to production and productivity. They just make all kinds of noises. They do this, they do that, but they don't target. They don't have the manpower, nor do they have the trained manpower to monitor private enterprise at all. So it's agriculture must be private sector driven. It's not something government can just decide this is what we're going to do. And anyway, production of either maize or cassava must be demand driven. Where is the total demand coming from? Is it China? Is it Ukraine? Now there's been a disruption in the flow of food and other items. So if we do not study these things and begin to channel those funds that are already available, then we got a problem. We're going to go back. This boom time, assuming the war ends tomorrow, then we've lost it. But we have to now get people involved that they know that we can indeed produce these things and we have the capacity. We don't need new funding. The funding is already there. In fact, the Bank of Industry can actually intervene by cushioning the interest rate being charged by commercial banks. The commercial banks are what's your capital. Let's just deploy those capital instead of going investing in short-term investments that will yield them unnecessarily high yields, of return. Okay, when you have those things, again, you have so much capital chasing very few production. You're going to the inflation would definitely rise because the micro mix of supply demand and supply demand curve and quotient is not going to play. We need to increase supply over demand to bring down the inflation. So I still say that what we have is there in Nigeria. We have the domestic ability, we have the domestic funds to fund what we need, coupled with the inflow of capital from abroad, from World Bank, from our International Bank, agriculture and stuff like that. It's just a question of these people, and we have the wrong personnel, the wrong policies, and nobody's talking about it. We have wrong personnel chasing or implementing policy that they do not know nothing about. The Anchor Borrowers program is a total failure because of wrong implementation. But we're going to get it right, and we're going to be able to show people that we can actually do whatever we need to do. So I'm not afraid. It's just a question of getting the right thing done. And we're very close to signing MOUs, and in the next few months, invite me back, and we're going to tell you that this is a success story. And Nigerians have the ability to produce for themselves.
All right, Mr. Chukwuachiku, President, Agriculture and Industrial Entrepreneurs of Nigeria. We certainly will follow up and find out how impactful that industrial park project you're talking about will be. And of course, we all pray for the best because, as our first guest said, a hungry man is an angry man, and you cannot put anything past him. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Enjoy your stay in Abia.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Move over to the markets now. We do an opening call with Aniti Edit. Hi, Aniti. Good morning.
Yeah, hi, good morning, Ini. Happy New Week.
I wish you the same.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to tell you what happened at the market. 4 markets is what I'll be analyzing today, along with my guests. So first, I'll start with the Forex market. Now, for the Forex markets, this is how it turned out at the close of Friday's trading session. It was mostly negative. This is what you see here for the total number of transactions carried out. 28.59% is how the volume of transactions turned out negative. And the only positive that you see was on the forwards markets of the Forex market. 26.11% is what the value, with the total value carried out on that segment of the FX market turned out. Now, speaking of still within that market, the investors and exporters window of that market, the value was down. The number of transactions carried out there was down by 22.88% at 496.90, almost 500 million naira, but on the downside. Then for the Naira is still on the downside at the NAFEX rate. It was down by 0.02% at 417 naira 14 kobo as at last week, compared to what we had the previous week, which was 416 naira 14 kobo. Now, moving over to another market, which is the fixed income market, then the bonds segment of that market, it was mostly bullish sentiments there, and traders attribute the bullish sentiment to investors covering for lost bids at the FGM bond auction, which was carried out last week, to be precise, Monday 16th last week. So the total number of transactions, this is as of Friday, the number of transactions carried out there was 24, total of 7.71%. But in terms of the overall market, the demand was mostly in the uptick for investors. Now, moving over to the fixed income market, it was mostly bearish. It was mixed, but at the same time, it was bearish. But this is as at Friday. The total number of deals carried out was 5, and then most of the concentration was on the 29th of September 2023 paper, and then second was the 13th of April 2023 paper, which had 2, while the first one is 4. Total number, like I mentioned there, is 5. Now, moving over to another part of that market, the OMO market, we had just 1 deal. Of course, we had the Debt Management Office allotting over 378.41 billion naira worth of instruments at that market. Moving over to this market, the CBN special bills, what we had there, total number of deals carried out there was 7. That's all for that market. But in terms of outlook, what we'll be expecting, we will be expecting. Of course, I will be having my guest Akpenwe Oputu to tell us more about that market. So if we have it there, she can give us a highlight. But I think on my own, I'll do that analysis. What traders are expecting, they expect an uptick in bonds yield, for the bonds market in the medium term. Both that's due to the FGN's borrowing plan for 2022 this year. And expected fiscal deficit points to an elevated supply. So that's it for that market. So now let's talk to Akpenwe Oputu, who's a fixed income dealer at Access Bank. Thank you for joining us, Akpenwe.
Thank you for having us on the program.
Okay, so I have a question for you. 2 big things. Last week, we had the inflation figure, which pointed out Nigeria's inflation rate had increased to 16.82%, in contrast to what we had in March, which was 15.92%. And as we speak, the CBN, the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee, has begun its 2-day meeting, the 3rd for 2022. So what is the expectation for the fixed income market when you consider these 2 issues?
Okay, so from last week inflation figures, like you said, we saw an increase to 16.82%, which was like a 90 basis point increase from the previous month. So we saw a lot of cautious trading from market participants coming from last week, especially on the fixed income space. We saw some players withdraw their bids from the bond auction, while we saw others key in their bids at the last bond auction at higher rates, because the expectation from traders in the markets are rates are going to increase in the near term. But however, in the secondary market, we didn't see any noticeable reaction to the inflation figures, as our market is mostly driven by liquidity and not necessarily by the fundamentals we see. So we haven't seen a lot of internationals play in the market, and they are usually the ones who price in the inflation into their trades. So for this reason, we didn't see a lot of reaction in the secondary market. Well, like you said, so the MPC is scheduled to hold their meeting today and tomorrow. And what market players expect is an increase in the MPR rate, as we've seen recently from South Africa. They increased their rates from 4.25% to 4.75%. So the last time we saw the MPR rate change was in September of 2020. So the increase in rates, if done, is going to affect what we see in the asymmetric corridor window, and as well as consumer lending rates. But okay, sorry.
Okay, Akwe, I think we're running out of time, so, but we thank you for that wonderful analysis. And of course, the MPC, the big decision, we will keep our eyes on that. So thank you for joining us. That was Akwe Oputu, fixed income dealer at Access Bank. So time is never your friend, especially when you're having fun, even at the financial markets.
Exactly. Time is never your friend. And of course, we are going to have a special Business Incorporated tomorrow at 1:30, where we would analyze MPC decision and, of course, bring you the live decision of the MPC. So please do join us. And thank you so much, Aniti. We'll take a break now. After the break, we'll head to London. It's still Business Morning here on Channels Television. Stay with us. You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning. Let's head to London now. And the International Monetary Fund chief, Kristalina Georgieva, has warned that the global economy could be facing its biggest test since the Second World War. Well, this is no news to the world and even to the United Kingdom. Now, we've been talking about the year of the squeeze even before now. We have Juliana joining us now. Hi, Juliana. Good morning. Well, the IMF is asking government to subsidize food and energy. I guess we can't run away from that talk around the mini budget. It just keeps coming back to us.
Good morning, Annie. Yes, it does keep coming back. And in fact, there were reports over the weekend that the Chancellor and the Treasury are actually drafting up plans for a windfall tax on these big oil and gas companies. So I suppose we should keep our ear out on what comes out over the next few days. But there have been a flurry of policy meeting gatherings over the past few days, most notably in Germany. The G7 finance ministers met. And then the big one, which is Davos, a meeting between World Economic Forum and IMF and just very rich elites. It used to have a lot more punch over the past couple of years, but I think that since the pandemic, as the world has been reflecting, the fact that lots of people drink champagne and go to five-star restaurants in Davos isn't seen really as enough. But you do have a lot of important people speaking, such as the IMF chief, who has really sounded the alarm about what's going on in the global economy. It was obviously already bad post and during COVID-19. I can't really say post-COVID-19 because the world's second largest economy is currently going through a COVID-19 spike at the moment. Beijing just announced earlier today that 3 million residents will have to work at home. We know that Shanghai has been under a really tough lockdown, and that's a concern. And then, of course, we know that the war in Ukraine is causing significant supply chain disruption as well as food insecurity. And I think that's one of the reasons why Christina was saying that governments must do more to subsidize food. India is the second largest exporter of wheat, but they've actually stopped exporting wheat because they're having their own domestic issues. They've got over 1 billion people living within their borders, and they need to feed them. So it was a very reflective tone, as we would expect from the IMF. But we do need to see governments doing more, particularly in places like America and the UK, where inflation is running at a 40-year high.
Yeah, inflation and, well, we are having our MPC tomorrow, and I know that will be a major consideration for the MPC. Well, Julian, we just have to leave it there for now. 1:30, we'll have more conversations with you.
Thanks, Amy.
Let's move over to crypto space now. I don't think that Ladi has much of a good news this morning, Ladi.
Well, the good news is,
I know it was bloody, very bloody.
Yeah, it was quite a tumultuous week last week with global markets like in the U.S. With fears of the dreaded bear coming to those market, the bear market. Everyone's scared of that bear market, and you see the crypto market too is also afraid of that.
Got caught up in it.
Exactly, and we know that's a year-to-date downtrend of about 20%, but the S&P was able to reclaim that level on Friday, so the fears have, relaxed for now, but they are still there. And talking about fear, the fear greed index in the crypto market is at 10 points today. Extreme fear, still within that region. We've been there for a while now. We see the market cap there, $1.30 trillion. That's up about 3.21%. And we see volume traded, $64.54 billion. That's Bitcoin plus the altcoins. And we see Bitcoin dominance inching up there at 44.59%. Not seen that level in a while. Price of Bitcoin, $30,500, up 3.81%. Bitcoin managed to reclaim the 30K range over the weekend. Was trading around 28,000, but now has reclaimed that 30K level. Volume traded $23.47 billion. We see Ethereum also reclaiming the $2,000 mark, up 4% this morning. So we're seeing most of these coins actually reclaim some crucial levels. All right, let's bring in Olumide Adesina, our financial market analyst. Hello, Olumide. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. It looks green.
Yeah, quite a green Monday. We've not seen a green for a while, Olumide, and we're seeing, most of these coins reclaim, some, crucial support in the market. We've seen Bitcoin reclaim that 30,000. How are you seeing the price movement?
Yeah, just like you rightly said, we've seen many altcoins and the flagship crypto assets gaining support, particularly Bitcoin moving above $30,000 support level. And that does tell you partly because we are seeing the US dollar moderating at record paces starting from last week. So I think we are seeing risky assets enjoying such moderation. But having said that, you need to be quite frank, Ladi. It seems that institutional investors have not gotten over from the hangover. If you look at the routes that happened a couple of weeks back, where over $300 billion was wiped out the market value of crypto assets, suggested that volatility seems to still be weak. And that's partly why you see the fear index in the crypto market still relatively high. This is partly because we are seeing VCs going away from crypto assets, not like what we saw last year, and the fact that regulators are already talking about stable coins. We had the ECB president last week. She highlighted the fact that regulation seems to be the front burner on this market, and also different stakeholders are also clamoring the same move. So definitely we are seeing the crypto market still living on a very thin thread, despite the rally we are seeing today.
Right, quite a thin thread. And talking about the market movement at this point, Olumide, what's your outlook for the week? We're seeing that the dollar index is pulling back a bit. Hopefully that can continue so we can see some greens, in this market. But what's your outlook for price movement?
That is very unlikely to see the dollar keep maintaining that pullback for the midterm, understanding fully well that we are going back to next month where the US Fed will become very hawkish and start reducing the balance sheet. So I would definitely not be wise to bet against the US dollar moderation. I think, the short term, Bitcoin might recover, but the mid and long term is still bearish for the market.
Still bearish. All right, Olumide, thank you so much. Always great to get your perspective there. All right, now, let's look at the top odds by market cap. We're seeing it's mostly green on that count, as Olumide said, it's a green Monday. And we see eCash there up by 15.37%. XRP, 2% up, still at 42 cents. Remember, this was trading at 80 cents just a couple of months ago. BNB up 3.34%. So it's a green market, but as Olumide said, it's still skating on thin ice at this point.
Yeah, still has that bearish sentiment all around it, but we'll see how it goes, and hopefully to be going up.
You know how these markets are. Everybody expects it's going to go down next and it goes up.
Yeah, I'll certainly be watching and reporting to you. Thank you so much, Ladi. And that's it on the program today. Do remember, 1:30 will be here for Business Incorporated, but we'll have the big one tomorrow, because as we speak, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria is meeting and discussing. Tomorrow will be decision day, and it will bring us a special episode of Business Incorporated. You really need to join us by then. I'm Ini John Mekwa. I'll see you tomorrow.